ChoralEd. Welcome to episode 16 of ChoralEd. I'm your host, Micah Bland. Thanks so much for watching. In today's episode, we turn our attention to vocal exercises that help develop ensemble cohesion. And to share her insights on the topic, it is my pleasure to welcome Vicki Bailey to the show. Vicki currently serves as the assistant conductor of the Colorado Children's Chorale, with prior experience at both the middle and high school levels at two exceptional programs in Colorado. I hope you enjoy this presentation by Miss Bailey.
Thank you, Dr. Bland. And as this is being recorded, I would like to recognize that Dr. Bland over here was just awarded his DMA at USC a couple weeks ago. So congratulations. And
thank you very
let's go ahead
much.
And get started. Yeah. Right on. So today I'm going to be talking about vocal exercises for ensemble cohesion. How can we get our ensemble singing together? And some of the things I'm going to be presenting to you are going to be more, what can you add to some things that you're already doing, just like supplement into your warm-ups, rather than let me give you a list of a bunch of new exercises. I'll be providing some specific examples and you're welcome to take those and use them as you wish. But for the most part, sometimes we feel a little guilty that we get kind of stuck in the same rut of 5 warm-ups. And especially when you're teaching and you have 6 preps in a row, it's kind of hard to compartmentalize a little bit. So if you find something to focus on a little bit with ensemble cohesion, adding into things you already do, it'll be a lot easier on you and on your mental health. Okay, so a little overview of what we're going to talk about. Starting with kinesthetic movement, one of my favorite things, then breathing, onset, some round exercises, what you can do with rounds, and then implementing your repertoire into your warm-ups to help with ensemble cohesion. Kinesthetic movement. So some of my favorite things that I like to do kinesthetically, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you're getting everybody moving in your ensemble, you can easily see as the director if their pulse is if they're together. Because the first exercise that I have listed here is patching, and that's a Takadimi thing. And basically you're just dividing quarter notes, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're having everybody in your ensemble patch quarter notes and somebody's off, then you can kind of tell that their pulse isn't together. That's something that you can address. So that's just adding in to any sort of exercise that you might use. Another thing that I like, or rehearsing rep. Another thing that I like to do now that we're kind of coming out of pandemic mode a little bit is if you stand in a circle, you can tap the shoulder of your neighbor. So I'll tell everybody to like raise their right hand. This might be left in the video, who knows? And then get a little closer together, and then you just set a tempo and they're tapping the shoulder. And so that way, like as an ensemble, they're starting to feel it. Some kids might not be super comfortable with like having others touch them. So to still participate and feel the tapping, I'll have them just like step forward and like tap their own hand. So that way you still have that visual cue, but overall that kinesthetic ensemble togetherness is really great. And then marking time. Marking time can also kind of affect the sound. So if you're going for like a legato phrase, it's a marching band thing. So it's basically just stepping with your heels, left, right. And if you're like trying to get a legato sound, it's probably not the best thing to do, but it's really, really great just to have a visual aid and have them kind of connecting within their whole bodies as they're trying to feel pulse. And then phrasing. So kinesthetic movements for phrasing. Some things I like to do is like drawing the phrase, drawing the peak of the phrase with your arm. So if I like back up a little bit, singing like, I love to sing, and then really ramping it up and having that love be like the biggest part of the phrase at the top. That'll kind of show you where their energy's going. If they're going too fast, like, I love to sing, then you can kind of tell that they're going to run out of breath. So implementing these exercises, but also going back and making corrections and being like, okay, where are we on that top note? I love, and just freeze on that note at the top of the phrase. And then you have that visual cue. They're feeling it, they're getting it in their bodies. Also, this next one is more of something that you can do with phrases in the rep, but talking about, the meaning of the text. That's the best part about what I think is one of the best parts about choral music is that we get words and we get to talk about the meaning of words and like express ourselves with those words. So talking about what the text means and stepping forward on what they believe is the most important word and is the top of the phrase. And it's like a good interpretation exercise, but also if some kids are stepping forward on a word that's like way sooner than others, your phrasing is going to be different. You're not going to have like a consistent crescendo or decrescendo if some kids feel like the peak of the phrase is a lot earlier, or kids or adults, ensemble members. And then finally teach them a conducting pattern. Like it is really great to have them kind of understand what you're doing. So you just say like, we can start with down, in, out, up. And then once they get the basic pattern down, you can like have them articulate, like sing what you see, and then have different kids step forward. And getting that in different parts of their bodies will help them with their phrasing and their articulation, and then be able to kind of unify as an ensemble. So yeah, implement kinesthetic movement into your warm-ups and when you're rehearsing repertoire. That's the biggest thing. Like we don't want to make warm-ups and rehearsal two totally separate things. You want them to be able to kind of like cross one into the other. So if you're working on tone and warm-ups, but you don't really address it in the repertoire, tie it back to the repertoire, sometimes that connection is not made. So you really want to be explicit about that. Okay. Breathing, because we've all heard the phrase, ensembles that breathe together, sing together. And it's cheesy, but it's true. Because if you're all breathing at the same time, then that's a physical cue that you can line up. So breathing and unpitched warm-up exercises for ensemble cohesion, super, super important. One of my favorites, just to kind of get the air going, using your arms as a kinesthetic aid. Basically, you'll inhale for 2 to 4 counts, and then exhale for 12 to 24. And when your arms come on a hiss, and so when your arms come down, you want them to reflect how much air is in the tank. So if I did in for 4, out for 12, in for 4, out, and then by beat 6, I want to be halfway. And you can do what I did in the kinesthetic exercise earlier, freeze on beat 6 and make sure their arms are halfway down. And also trying to make sure that they're getting rid of all of their air by 0, because kids especially will just like hoard their air and then their breath stacks up. And we know that's bad. So making sure that they use the entire duration of the counts to let go of their air, even if they could definitely sustain for a lot longer. Another cohesion thing that you can do without them singing any notes or pitches, conduct the ensemble on just hissing a quarter note. And if you were like me and you don't have an accompanist, I never had an accompanist when I was teaching. Now I do the chorale, which is great. But it's hard because you sit behind the piano and then you get in front of them when you have your rehearsal accompanist and for the concert, and you're waving your arms and they're not really used to it at first. So it's important to like get in front of them and conduct, especially if it's just you in there playing the piano and doing all of the things. So what you can do is you just get in front of them and you say like, follow me on a hiss, and they go, tss, 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 tss. You change the tempo, tss, 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 articulation, tss, 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 dynamics, and then work with them on different cutoffs. And that's just a really great way to show them, tempo changes, dynamics, and once again, articulation. And that helps them, if you have a piece where you're speeding up at the end, doing this exercise doesn't use a lot of vocal energy. It's fun, it like engages the brain, and it like gets you what you need. And then finally, the clap on X exercise. It's a really good way to get your students focused as well and feeling an internal tempo. And this is an exercise that you want to scaffold. So just to give you an example, I would start just like snapping a tempo. Who knows if this is lined up? I love Zoom. So I'll go clap on 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll count out loud and I'll snap it first. 1, 2, clap on 4, 1, 2, 3, clap, 1, and I won't show the clap, but I'll say clap so that way they're not used to like watching me clap, but they're just counting in their head, and I'll keep the snaps going. Eventually I'll like stop counting, so I'll just give them like the first 4 bar. I'll say 1, 2, clap on 3, and we'll see if it's together. If they start to come apart, then I'll start counting out loud again. That's how you kind of jump in. Then eventually what you want to do is you just want to stop snapping, and so you want to see if they keep clapping on that same beat. And so that's to see like if the ensemble is feeling that internal pulse. And some of them will start to like tap their toes, but tap faster. So you want to encourage them to just like count and subdivide in their head. So that's one of my favorite ones to kind of get their focus up. And you can say 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 and 3 if you're feeling like you want to be lame. Yeah. So yeah, unpitched warm-up exercises I think are really excellent, especially if you have a block period, a long time to warm up. You can spend a little bit more time on them. But with the scaffolding on these exercises, don't feel like you have to like get it all perfect in one sitting. That's the nice thing about warm-up exercises. You can kind of start with, you can just spend like maybe 2 minutes on this and just build a little bit more onto it every day. And you're still doing like the same thing, you're revisiting the same concepts, but instead of just trying to rush through it or spending like 20 minutes on the clap on X exercise, which I would not do, you're breaking it up over multiple days. You're kind of instilling that internal pulse over time, which is ideal. Onset. Breathing together is important, but also like when you breathe together, you have to make sure your onset is the same, that you're singing the first note at the same time. Consonants are the best. I love consonants that help us give an onset on the breath versus glottal. That might be like USC in my brain. And but one of my favorite ones is using an F. And so what I have my kids do is I'll have them put their hand out and one hand on top, and you go fo for fo for fo. And every time you use that F, you're supposed to like sweep your hand across. It might be careful with this gesture if you have middle schoolers, but if I have my hand up like this, usually nobody really notices. So fo for fo for fo. And as you do that, really make sure that they're putting a lot of air behind that F. So make corrections to their warm-ups. Then for vowel onsets, what you want to do is you want to you can have them also prep and conduct vowel onsets together as an ensemble to start them on the breath. So say, okay, you're going to lift your hand up and go, oh, and they can, or whatever warm-up you might be starting. Su, oh. And if they're, and you know, having that visual kinesthetic cue again of breathing, and then as their hand comes up, you want to make sure that they're doing all of that kinesthetic movement at the same time. That will help line up their onset. Sometimes though, you know, starting with the breath is great. Sometimes it's not really right with the style, and you might want to glottal. With glottals, scaffold it. Start with a consonant before moving to starting on the starting right on the glottal. So you want to use a specific phrase from your rep. And thinking about rep. I like had a specific example for mine. I'll come back to it. It could be like, I'll just sing the phrase on the shore. But if you did like on the shore, you could do con the shore and just put like a consonant in front of it first. Once they're lining up the consonant, it'll be easier to line up the vowel. So scaffold it. You don't have to do both of those in one day, but just start with the consonant one day, try to line it up over a couple days, and then then finally just do it right on the vowel. And that way, you're breaking up your warm up over time. Rounds are my favorite. They are magical and they can be used to target various ensemble needs. So tempo and pulse, and rounds are cool for everyone. I teach rounds with the children's chorale all the time. I taught rounds in middle school, high school, even taught rounds at the collegiate choir that I worked with, or Oriana. Like, I love rounds. I think they're really great for everyone. So what they can help with is, tempo, pulse, your balance, your part independence. We can have them sing in different part. We don't have to go over all of this, but cutoffs, onset, and you can name a bunch more in your head, probably reasons in your head why rounds are great, but this podcast will last 50 years and I don't want to do that to Dr. Bland. So keep your rounds fresh every time by having a different cohesion element or goal to focus on every single time. So what I mean by that is maybe like, okay, we're going to work on our onsets. We want to make sure that we're starting the phrase at the same time. We want to make sure we're holding the ends of each phrase to the end. We want to make sure we're breathing at the same time. And of course, not doing that all in one day, but depending on what you want to work on in your rep, use that in your round. So we're working on onsets on our rep today. We're going to do that in the round in our warm-ups. And that's like the biggest thing with warm-ups. You don't want to just go on autopilot and say, okay, Z, 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 but, okay, cool. And you do your same 5, but you're not making corrections. Or you're saying, oh, you can give me, let's make sure that our onset is on that correct note rather than going Z, 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 but Z. So stopping to make corrections on warm-ups will help you in your rep in the long run. Just make sure that you're doing that. So I have a round example. This is one of my favorites, and I'll sing it for you. As I'm singing it, I can like tell you a couple things that I like to work on, or after I sing it. So it's the river, she is flowing, flowing and growing. The river, she is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, your child I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea. So listening to it once, you might be thinking in your music educator brain, what are some things that we can address in this warm-up? Phrasing. Right now I'm full disclosure, I'm 38 and a half weeks pregnant. So ideally you want them to make it through 2 lines per phrase on one breath. I cannot right now, but that's okay. And so that's something you can focus on. You can focus on your onsets. You got some great consonants there. The voiced consonants and unvoiced. So making sure that they're starting on the correct note, the or mother, and then mother carry me. So so yeah, you can just use that to focus on, just break it down and then put it in a round. And that makes it sound cool. It's a melody that like all age groups really enjoy singing. And so they don't mind kind of doing it over and over again over a series of weeks, as long as you have something else to focus on and you can tie it into your repertoire. Okay. And sometimes, you do feel guilty about being in a warm-up, right? You do the same 5 over and over again, and then you kind of remember that another one exists and you bring it back in. But if you feel like you're really in a rut, use your rep. Just be really explicit and use your rep. So you want to isolate different rhythmic passages or wordy phrases on notes of the major scale. That could be a good way to do ensemble cohesion. So I did this song with my concert choir called Where the Light Begins by Susan Labar, SSA. It's really great. And it has some really difficult rhythmic patterns and lots of big words. So one of the phrases is the luminous line of the map in the dark. And so I first have them to speak it, And then you can isolate it on a major scale. So they could go, the luminous line of the map in the dark, the luminous line of the map. And I just have them sing it up in a major scale. I'm addressing consonants, I'm addressing rhythmic cohesion all at the same time. And then, if you want to give them an added challenge, you can just do it in a major scale round. That's one of my faves. Releases and phrasing, add kinesthetic movements to rests. So another example that we do in the children's chorale, we sing Consider Yourself from Oliver as a standard. So to kind of show them, to signify a release, I do like a snap and a point up, especially if it's in the middle of the phrase. So it'd say, consider yourself at home. So on that F, they do the snap and the up point, and we do it a couple times. And you don't have to be in the key. You can kind of start and then modulate up and down or throughout, just to do something different. And then finally, count, sing sustained notes for phrasing. So going back to where the light begins, you could sing, there's one phrase near the end where they have to like crescendo through a whole note, and they sing, we are where the light begins. So what you could have them do is sing, we are where the light begins, 1 and 2 and T and 4 and so they get louder on each count. And then you just have them count first, and then eventually take away, just tell them to count in their head, take away the counting. And that's one of my favorite things for sustaining crescendos and decrescendos too, because I think decrescendos are a lot harder because they just get quiet too fast. Don't feel like you have an issue with jumping around from song to song. So you can do like a text warm up from one piece that you're going to address that day, and then count singing from another, work on maybe a foreign language phrase, singing up the major scale. You can jump around, it's your warm-ups. So what you can do that, or just do some like vocalises at the beginning of your rehearsal, and then do a warm-up before with the rep before you address that particular piece. So if I was going to say, we're going to do where the light begins, I would do the singing up the major scale with that rhythmic phrase. Then I would move on to consider yourself and say, okay, let's try this together. Consider yourself. And so setting up your rep rehearsal with like a little warm up or exercise, you can implement warm ups whenever in your rehearsal. Follow your heart. Okay. So basically that is my last slide. But when you I was like, oh yes, I didn't have like a thank you slide. But I think the biggest thing to take away from Ensemble Cohesion is kinesthetic movement is a hero, because what you can see and what they can see just gives them another tool that they can use to sing together, and also making sure that you are implementing the kinesthetic into your warm-ups every day, and making corrections on those warm-ups. So instead of just going on autopilot, really making sure they're giving you the onset they want on a vocalese, even though it's not their rep. It's worth it, and it will transfer. So thank you so much, Dr. Bland.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for sharing with us today. To our ChoralEd viewers, I hope you would take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you continue to inspire the future leaders of our world through this wonderful gift we call music. Thanks.